Hi everybody, this is Josh Culp. We are learning Daf Shuli. We are on Daf Kuf Vav, page 106. And I wanted to relate to a strange rule that Rav states in our sugya, offer a couple explanations for it, and then maybe throw up my hands and say I can't really explain it all that well. I should note that this rule is rejected from halacha, so at least like the sugya ends up in a sensible place, but still, Rav's statement bothers me. So what does Rav say? Rav says, somebody who says, Maneli biadcha. Someone says, you have 100 dinar, 100 zuz of mine. V'hala amar ein lecha biyadi klum. I don't have anything of yours. And he takes an oath, v'nishba, ubao edim, and witnesses come and testify that his oath was false. Right? It would seem quite obvious. This guy took a false oath. Of course, he should have to pay back the money. Witnesses have established that he owes that money. And yet, Rav says that he is exempt, as it says in the Torah, and the owner thereof shall accept it, and he shall not make restitution. It is very, which Rav reads means that once the owner receives an oath, the accused who is lying, even if he's lying, no longer has to make restitution, which is very strange. This person is lying. He does owe that money. We have established evidence that he owes that money, and nevertheless, he does not have to make restitution. So how do I explain this, right? It doesn't really make much sense to me. So two explanations. One is that Rav, let me just move this over so I can read the screen here. Rav is really like a very overly simplified way of reading the verse. This is Exodus 22, 9 through 10. When any party gives to another person an animal of sorts, and he claims, right, it died or is injured or is carried away, taken away, and there's no witnesses there, then an oath before God shall decide between the two of them that one has not laid hands on the property of the other. The owner must accept the oath, and no restitution shall be made. However, right, Rav reads that as an absolute. Once the oath is there, lo yeshalem, the owners have to accept that oath, and the accused, the bailee, the guardian, does not have to make a payment, even if he was lying. Now, I don't think that that's the simple reading of the verses, but it is a potential reading of the verse, and it could be that Rav is anchored in just a overly simplified reading of the verse. I don't find that very satisfactory, because I don't really think Amoraim or rabbis should be reading verses in a way that doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think probably the simple idea of the verse is there's no proof that this guy was lying. If there's no proof that he was lying, then the owners have to accept his word for it. But if there's proof that he's lying, then he should have to pay for his lie, pay what he owes. The other possibility, which I saw elsewhere, is that perhaps Rav is based on a rule we've learned elsewhere in Masechet Bava Kamma and other Masechtot, called Kimle b'derabbanan minei, give him the worst punishment. Since he took a false oath, he's going to get punished for taking a false oath. Maybe those are lashes. There's a prohibition against taking a false oath in the Torah, and the generally prohibitions are punished with lashes if they're a simple negative commandment. So Rav could be invoking here the rule that once he took a false oath, he doesn't have to pay the monetary payment. Again, I find that unsatisfactory. There's no hint of that in the Gemara. And also, I think there are other cases where people could pay, even though, the simple reading is that that rule just doesn't apply in this situation. That if you take a false oath, you get punished for the false oath, but you also have to pay that which you falsely swore about, because that's compensation. You owe that money. I don't have a better explanation of Rav. I'm willing to live with it, that it's a difficult rule. It gets rejected from halacha. It doesn't match the Tanaitic halacha. But I thought at least that was it was worth exploring avenues as to how to make sense of something that, for our first glance, appears to be a very difficult statement.